All right, let's talk about the real cost of beauty school. We're going to break it all down in this explainer. So let's just dive right in.
So is beauty school a bad investment? I mean, you've probably seen the headlines, right? The US government has been flagging a number of beauty programs for low earnings, and it's causing a lot of confusion. So let's try to get to the bottom of what's really going on here.
Okay, so those headlines are definitely attention-grabbing, but the reality is, well, it's a lot more complicated. See, the real problem isn't necessarily that graduates aren't earning money. The issue is this big mismatch between the super high cost of some of these programs and the income the government can actually see on paper. We're going to unpack exactly what that means.
First things first, we need to separate two totally different things: the value of a career in beauty and the cost of a beauty program. They are not the same thing, and that distinction is absolutely key.
You know, the beauty profession itself, it's actually incredibly strong. Think about it. In a world where everyone's worried about AI taking jobs, this is one of the few fields that's pretty much AI-proof. It needs that human hands-on touch. Plus, it's a huge launchpad for entrepreneurs. It's a way for people to create their own small businesses and start earning money really fast.
And this quote from our source material really just nails it. The career path itself, the profession, it's valuable. The problem is the financial setup of certain schools, the specific path you might take to get there.
So here's the conflict in a nutshell. You've got this super high tuition on one side, and on the other, you have the income the government can see from, tax data. When that tuition is way, way higher than the verifiable income, boom, that's what triggers that federal low earnings flag. But here's the kicker, and this is so important. The government's data is missing a huge piece of the puzzle. Why? Because so many beauty professionals aren't getting a simple paycheck from a big company. They're independent contractors, they're renting booths, they're running their own small businesses. So their income isn't just a clean W-2 form, and that means the federal data just doesn't see the whole story.
So that brings up the big question, right? Why are some of these tuitions so high to begin with? Well, to understand that, we have to look at how a lot of traditional beauty schools are actually set up financially.
It really comes down to four main things. First, just plain old tuition inflation. Costs have just gone up over the years. Second, there's something called a dual revenue system, and we'll get into what that means in a second. Third, some federal aid rules can actually encourage schools to make programs longer and more expensive. And fourth, like we just talked about, there's that big disconnect between the government's data and how people actually earn their money.
Okay, so that dual revenue thing, this analogy explains it perfectly. Imagine you're paying a ton of money for culinary school, but then, on top of paying tuition, you also have to work in the school's restaurant for free, and all the money the restaurant makes from your work goes straight to the school. That's basically what happens in the salon clinics at some beauty schools. Students are paying tuition while also making money for the school.
But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. There is another path, a different model that completely sidesteps these problems.
And the source paper we're looking at actually points to a great example of this different approach. It uses the Louisville Beauty Academy as a case study.
So check this out. This model tackles all the issues we've been talking about head-on. It's a fully state-licensed school. But, and this is huge, it operates without using federal student loans. That means it's a debt-free model for students. Because the tuition is low, they don't have to rely on federal aid, and they don't need that dual revenue system from a student clinic. And this isn't just some theory, This single school has already graduated almost 2,000 students with this debt-free model. It's real-world proof that you can offer a quality licensed education without getting tangled up in that complicated and expensive federal student loan system.
Okay, so what does all of this mean for you if you're thinking about beauty school? It means you have the power. You can be an informed consumer and make a smart choice for your own future.
So how do you do that? You ask the right questions. Before you sign up anywhere, you need to ask these 5 things. What's the total cost with everything included? Exactly how long is the program? How does your financial model actually work? What do your graduates typically do for a career? And maybe most importantly, what's my real return on investment going to look like?
And this quote really just sums it all up, doesn't it? When schools are upfront and transparent, it turns education into a consumer decision. And that's a good thing. It means you get to choose what's actually the best value for you and your future.
So that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. What if the future of this kind of education wasn't defined by complicated loans and federal aid? What if it was just defined by transparency? It's a thought that could change not just beauty school, but maybe all kinds of vocational training.